Today we're going to be looking at 6 women who managed to survive being attacked by Ted Bundy. We'll find out what happened during the attacks and how they ended up escaping with their lives. As ever, the details in this video are graphic, so viewer discretion is advised. And before we start, if you're interested in stories from the dark side of life, then please remember to like and subscribe to this channel so you can be the first to hear about all our future videos. Okay, let's do it. It's shortly after midnight on January the 4th, 1974. 18-year-old university student Karen Sparks is in the bedroom of her apartment within the University District of Seattle, Washington, an apartment she shares with 3 male friends. Karen is spending the evening reading in bed, but then suddenly something catches the corner of her eye. In the darkness of the night, Karen thinks she can see a man staring at her through her bedroom window. She takes a closer look, but sees nothing there. Karen dismisses what she's just seen, thinking it's just her imagination. It's a strange coincidence though, as earlier Karen had another strange encounter. Passing a laundromat, she'd felt the glare of a strange man staring at her. She'd look at him, he'd look away. She'd look again, and again the man would look away. In the bedroom, any unease Karen feels is quickly subdued by the fact that she lives with 3 men. With them in the house, she feels secure and they'd be able to come to her rescue should anything bad happen. Karen turns the light out and falls asleep. She's suddenly awoken by a man in her bedroom. This man is Ted Bundy. Bundy has broken into her apartment and proceeds to violently beat and violate her with a metal rod from her bed frame. Just before Karen loses consciousness, one of her roommates starts to talk in his sleep. Realising this man is so close, a startled Ted quickly flees the scene. Karen blacks out, and it will be at least 18 hours before she is discovered. The next day, her roommates carry on with their normal lives, unaware of the events that have happened in Karen's room. At around 7 p.m. that evening, having not seen Karen all day, one of them goes to check to see if she's okay. It's then that he encounters the horrific scene. Karen is still laying on her bed unconscious, and physical evidence of the attack can be seen on her bedding. The housemate immediately calls 911 and then contacts Karen's mother. Initially, the housemates believe Karen has simply fallen down the stairs, crawled into bed, and then slipped into unconsciousness. It's only at the hospital that they learn the truth about Karen being attacked. In a coma for 10 days, Karen finally awakens but has no memory of the attack. This unfortunately means that she is unable to provide physical details of the man to detectives. As a result of the attack, Karen suffered permanent physical and mental disabilities. She has a 50% loss of hearing and a 40% loss of vision. However, she didn't let the encounter with Bundy ruin her life. She later qualified as an accountant and now has a family. Although never officially confirmed as a survivor of Ted Bundy, there are many out there that believe this account, so we'll recount the story in this video. 8 months after his attack on Karen, Ted Bundy moves from Seattle to Salt Lake City in September 1974. On October the 11th, University of Utah student Rhonda Stapley is waiting for a bus, having spent the day undergoing dental surgery. Whilst at the bus stop, a well-dressed man pulls up alongside her driving a Volkswagen Beetle, and he asks her if she'd like a ride back to campus. She takes a quick look at him, and Rhonda sees that they're of a similar age, and believes that he's just a student looking out for a fellow student. Rhonda accepts the ride. In the car, the man tells her that his name is Ted, and they click so well that they even engage in some friendly banter. However, Rhonda quickly begins to make some strange observations. When she had entered the car, Ted reached across her to close the passenger side door. It's only during their drive that she realises there's no internal handle for her door. Strange as this is, Rhonda is not alarmed. After all, she believes college kids can be strapped for cash, so some things just fall apart. But then Ted begins to behave strangely. Instead of taking her directly to the university, Ted makes an unexpected detour. Still curious at this stage rather than alarmed, Rhonda asks Ted what's going on. Ted apologises and explains that he needs to run an errand at the local zoo. This isn't a problem for Rhonda. The zoo is nearby to the campus, so it's still quicker than if she'd waited for the bus. They continue on their journey. But then Ted drives past the zoo. He stops the car in an isolated spot that's practically invisible due to the covering trees. Still, Rhonda is not scared. She thinks Ted has driven her here just so that he can make a pass at her. Ted turns in his seat, leans in close to Rhonda, and in a whisper tells her, "You know what? I'm going to kill you." Ted then lunges forward and puts his hands across Rhonda's throat. Despite putting up a fight, Rhonda soon slips into unconsciousness. Slipping in and out of consciousness, on each awakening, Rhonda realises that Ted is assaulting her. And each time she looks at his face, she can see the anger etched upon it. In fact, Rhonda later recalled that he's the angriest looking man that she's ever seen. Rhonda begs Ted for her life, but he tells her she should be grateful, telling her that she should be thanking him that she's still alive. Eventually, Ted believes Rhonda is dead and becomes distracted. Rhonda seizes this opportunity and runs into the woods, and ends up falling into a fast-moving mountain stream. This stream sweeps her away from her attacker and saves her life. Rhonda walks the 10 miles home, cleans herself up, and vows never to speak of the attack, incorrectly feeling a sense of shame. For this reason, she also doesn't contact law enforcement. It took Rhonda almost 4 decades to talk of Bundy's attack, revealing that she had broken her silence to encourage other women who have experienced traumatic events to talk about them and seek help. Later in life, Rhonda got married, had children, and qualified as a pharmacist. What do you think about this story? Do you think it was Ted Bundy who attacked Rhonda? It's November the 8th, 1974, almost a month since Rhonda Stapley was attacked. 18-year-old Cheryl DaRonch is passing the afternoon in a shopping mall, and whilst looking through a clothing shop window, Cheryl is approached by a man. The man identifies himself as Officer Roseland, but of course we really know that this is Ted Bundy using a pseudonym. Officer Roseland informs Cheryl that he's caught someone trying to break into her car, and tells her that she needs to accompany him so that they can assess the damage. She agrees. They get to the vehicle and Cheryl opens the car door. Nothing seems out of the ordinary, but the man asks Cheryl, who has her back turned to him, to lean further into the car, just to double check. She refuses to do so, instead telling the officer that she doesn't think anything is missing. The officer then escalates matters. He tells Carol that the police are holding a suspect and that she should accompany him in his car so that she can file a complaint at the station. Now Carol is suspicious. She doesn't believe this man is a police officer, so she asks him to provide some identification. From his pocket, he produces a fake police ID badge, and this is enough to convince Carol. She accepts the lift and gets into his car. Bundy and Carol have now left the shopping mall and are supposedly heading for the station. However, Carol notices that the road they're heading down doesn't go anywhere near the station. She challenges Bundy and he immediately pulls the car over. Bundy produces a pair of cuffs and attempts to cuff Carol's wrists together. However, he makes a mistake and attaches both of the cuffs to just the one wrist. Bundy then produces a firearm and warns Carol to stay in the car, but she doesn't listen and still tries to escape. Eventually, she does get out of the car and she makes a run to escape Bundy's clutches. Bundy picks up a crowbar, exits the vehicle, and runs after Carol. He catches her. Carol fights back against Bundy and he loses his grip on her. A desperate Carol runs into the path of an oncoming car to seek help. The car stops and Carol is finally taken to safety, the cuffs still attached to her wrist. Later that evening, a key is found on the floor outside a high school from where another student, Deborah Kent, has been abducted. This key undoes the cuffs Carol is wearing. Carol contacts the police and eventually identifies Bundy during a police lineup. Because Deborah's body has never been found, even to this day, there was not enough evidence at the time to link Bundy to that murder. However, there is enough to link him to the kidnapping and assault of Carol. Carol testifies against him. He's found guilty, and in June of 1976, he is sentenced to between 1 to 15 years in prison. The ordeal with Ted has had a lasting impact on Carol. In a later interview, she said that she's still unable to trust people. And to quote her, "I'll never forget his wicked smile as long as I live." In a story that's too long to go into in this video, Bundy manages to escape from incarceration twice in 1977. It's during his second time on the run that our fourth story begins. At the beginning of 1978, Bundy has managed to make his way to Tallahassee, Florida, and on January the 15th, he will attack 5 people, with only 3 surviving. At around 2:45 a.m, Bundy makes his way to a Chi Omega sorority house. He creeps to the back of the house and sees there's a broken combination lock on the door, so he'll be able to enter with ease. Next to the door lies a pile of firewood, and from this, Bundy picks up a log. He opens the back door and enters the property, and makes his way to the stairway and climbs to the second floor. He reaches the first room and enters. Sleeping in this room is 21-year-old Margaret Bowman. Bundy quickly kills her without managing to wake anyone else up. He then crosses the hallway and enters the bedroom of 20-year-old Lisa Levy. He attacks her. He leaves her room whilst she's still alive, but she dies before managing to reach a hospital. The next room he enters is shared by 2 roommates, and they will survive his brutal attacks. In this bedroom, roommates Kathy Kleiner and Karen Chandler are both sleeping. Despite trying to be careful, Bundy trips over a trunk in the bedroom, and this noise startles Kathy and she wakes up. In her daze, all she can make out is a dark figure and a weapon. But before she's able to do anything, the figure attacks her and Kathy quickly passes out. Because the bedroom is so small, Karen's bed is within touching distance of Kathy's, and after Kathy has lost consciousness, Bundy swings around and beats Kathy. Both Kathy and Karen are now badly injured, but will be spared by an event that spooks Bundy. While attacking Kathy, the room is suddenly illuminated by the headlights of a car that has driven up outside the bedroom window. Someone is making their way into the house, so Bundy hurries out of the bedroom and quickly exits the building. Karen manages to leave the bedroom to seek help. Realising Kathy is also in danger, the other housemates run to the shared bedroom. Inside, they find Kathy sitting up in bed, rocking and moaning. Bundy managed to attack all 4 girls in only 15 minutes. And remarkably, despite there being a potential 30 eyewitnesses that could have heard something, nobody did. Bundy carried out his attacks in complete silence. After leaving the sorority house, Ted continues his rampage. That same evening, he breaks into the basement home of Cheryl Thomas. He attacks her and leaves her for dead. During the attack, the commotion is so bad that one of Cheryl's next door neighbours is woken up. She can hear Cheryl's moans through the wall and calls her on the telephone. Cheryl doesn't answer. The neighbour realises something is wrong and calls 911. Emergency services are dispatched to the scene and Cheryl is rushed to hospital. She survives but is left with lifelong injuries, including permanent deafness. After his capture, Kathy, Karen and Cheryl all went on to testify against Ted during his trial in Florida. Their testimonies helped to secure a death penalty conviction. And that's the story of how 6 women managed to escape with their lives after encountering Ted Bundy. Do you have any thoughts about today's video? If so, please share them in the comments below. And if you liked this video, please remember to like and subscribe to be informed of any future videos posted by this channel. Until then.